Today's video is going to be a more advanced guide on the guild raid. I've done one basic guild raid video. I'm going to put that at the end of the video. That goes over the most basic steps on how to beat it. But today it's going to be a little bit more advanced. And this is for guild raid rankings. If your guild is trying to go for rank 1, these are the tips on how to do it and what monsters to focus on. If you like my videos and like all my content, hit the sub button, hit the like button, hit that bell dingy dingy thing so you know when I post a video. Let's go, baby. Alright, so this is going to be the more advanced guide to guild raids. We're talking highest level you can go, depending on your server's progress or your guild's progress. But this will help you push your guild to the top. We're going to talk about the guild raid advanced tips from a North America Cairos server rank 1 guild Elegy. We still have one competing guild to go, Phantoma, and we beat their last record, so we're just going to have to see if they can improve on that. These are sub 5-minute runs. And that's important because once a guild raid has started, it only lasts for 5 minutes. So if it passes the 5-minute mark, you have to use your second entry. You only get 2 entries per level. You don't want to enter alone. You need to coordinate and organize a time when everyone, at least 24 people, can attend. Here are the advanced tips, and I'll talk about what monsters to focus on for the raid. First and foremost, you need an organized raid leader. One that calls out when to go in, and to call out when you need to remove buffs, or attack the knight that pops up, etc. What we do to do sub 5-minute runs. We have 2 raid groups of 12. The max amount of people that can be in the guild raid at one time is 24. The first 12 people that enter the guild raid is one, the kind of like main tank per se, one that goes in, jumps down, and aggroes the boss for the AoE stun. As you see here, Haydock went in first, aggroes the boss so that she does her AoE stun, and we are all waiting at the top. Once the AoE stun goes off, then we go ahead and jump down as you see here. Now there's 3 other types of raiders that you will need to succeed the most. You got your heavy hitters. These are your guildies that have crazy good PvE monsters. And this is typically Wind Vampire, Fire Vampire, and Wind Polar Queen. Or you can go Wind Vampire, a secondary DPS, like in North America, it's Water Narin Ha from the collab. EU, you don't have that. But if you have like Light Sylph or any other type of big hitter, then you can use that. And then you follow that up with Fire Vampire. I'll talk about these monsters in a minute. Then you have hybrid DPS. Ones that are like half damage dealers and half support. This is typically a cleanser or like a support for attack buff, crit damage buff up, whatever. And then you have your full supports, healers, which are pretty much Kina's majority of the time, not every time. The first thing to do, a knight pops up right at the beginning. Everyone just needs to go ahead and focus that thing down and kill it. It's got high defense. It takes like a second or whatever. Then the obelisk comes up. Now one of the last roles is someone that is designated to the tower. Technically, you could probably have everybody stack on the tower with the boss. However, the boss does move around a little bit and dashes back and forth. I volunteer to solo the obelisks. I can do it by myself, with the right monsters. The mechanic for the obelisk is this light and dark sundial at the top. If it reaches a side at full capacity, the boss will do an ultimate and it slows your run down. And the boss also gets a damage reduction buff. You do not want this to go off. So once the knight goes down, the obelisk pop up and you can go ahead and knock down the obelisk. It will come up about every 3 seconds. You just keep knocking it down, making sure to balance this light and dark so that he doesn't pull off the ultimate. This is an extremely important job. You need to have someone doing this. This is my normal obelisk team of Wind Harpy, Prelee, Raccoony, Fireharg, and Fire Raven Karambit. They're all on Swift. They all have over 200 attack speed. When the boss gets to a certain percentage, it automatically transfers to the other light or dark element. And just so you know, The Guild Raid is not a neutral element. It is technically a dark boss at one point and a light boss at one point. So if you're really fancy in changing monsters and you have light and dark options for big hitters, you definitely want to take advantage of the element advantage. It's an advantage. But that was the automatic transition. Once this happens, a new knight will pop up. You have to kill the knight so that you can go back on the obelisk tower. Once you kill the knight, then the obelisk goes down easy. The damage done to the obelisk does not matter. It's about how many hits it takes in order to take it down. So you need either A, someone who does a lot of hits on a skill, or B, the attack speed of the basic attack. That helps as well. That's why I'm using a 3-star Wind Harpy, 2 mana cost, hits 6 times. I'm also using Karambit as a non-soul link. He has his own attack speed buff, and his attack speed on mine is like 210. I'm using Orbia for the multi-hits. The obelisk technically can be HP destroyed, and the graphic will show it. I really don't even think that actually works. It shows that the obelisk tower's HP is destroyed, but I don't think it actually matters. I tried it with Cleef and it seemed like it took even longer. Plus Orbia's multi-hits are just a lot more. So this is the point of view from someone who has the obelisk role. I'm going to show you the point of view from a damage perspective. There's 2 things to know on the damage perspective of it. 1, there needs to be as many debuffs on the boss as possible. So you need a variety of monsters in your whole raid. Everyone just can't bring the same monsters. To maximize the amount of damage, you really need to just think about bringing as many debuffs as you can. I'm going to show you the amazing comp of what Wind Polar Queen, Fire Vampire, and a damage dealer can do. It's a little more complicated than just spamming your damage dealer on Soul Link. First, you use Wind Polar Queen on your Soul Link. You use her second skill, which is the R. What that does is increases your ultimate gauge really fast. Once you get the ultimate maxed, you then switch to Fire Vamp and use your ultimate. Once he ultimates, then you switch to your damage dealer. What his ultimate does is lowers the mana cost of your skills and lowers mana cooldowns, etc. So now you have a 1 mana cost damage dealer spamming their attacks. There's a couple things to think about though. Number 1, the boss cleanses its debuffs every once in a great while. You also need buff removal in your team, such as Sekhmet or Chilling, because there comes a point when the boss puts all of these buffs on itself. You need someone to remove them all. But as a damage dealer, you need to just make sure you're not standing in red stuff. The boss does strip your buffs as well, so if you're getting your buffs stripped, you're going to be doing less damage. But yeah, if you do all these things, you just rinse and repeat, and you will kill it. Now let's focus on the monsters that are good for the guild raid. Like I said, you need everyone to have a variety of monsters. It's gotta be spread out and other people need to invest in other monsters. The main goal in guild raid is having the most debuffs and buffs for your team. If there was a way to get every single debuff on the boss, that would be the ultimate raid team. But the main 3 debuffs you want to keep at stack 10 is damage taken up, crit damage taken up, and defense down. You also want to include Fermion's unremovable damage taken up debuff as well. If you do those 4 things, all the other debuffs will come with the variety of monsters that your whole raid brings. Also, if you have these 3 buffs stacked at level 10, that is another goal. You gotta maximize your buffs. But I'm going to tell you mainly guild raid leaders what you should be focusing on monster-wise. For your designated obelisk killer, just have someone build Wind Harpy. 2 mana cost Soul Link, attack 6 times. I'm going to damage dealers first. EU, you do not have Water Narin Ha, but in North America we do. Definitely a top tier. Wind Vampire Argon, top tier damage. Another top tier damage dealer. Fire Polar Queen Brandia. Fire Ifrit Tessarion, and if you have 10 stacks of burn, Tessarion's gonna blow him up. The new Fire Vampire, he's a ramp up damage dealer because of his passive. He will do well here. Water Ifrit Theomaris, Not only for frostbite, the more frostbite it has, the more damage he's going to do. Some key notable natural 5 light and darks. I already talked about Light Sylph. Light Ifrit, you're going to have a ton of buffs on your raid. He will benefit from this extremely. Dark Vampire Caddis, it's not really about the damage. He does good damage, but he will max out the bleed, which is another debuff. Dark Archangel Fermion, this is important. He applies a damage taken up buff that is unremovable. Now what's important about that is that these 2 buffs do not stack. They don't stack on each other, but they do stack on the enemy. This is more damage. Dark Vampire Hunter, if you got it. Huge damage, especially on the light phase. Damage dealers for 4-star units, obviously you bring Wind Martial Cat Naomi. She's got the crit damage taken up buff, plus there's going to be a ton of debuffs on the guild boss. Lynn on a very high attack speed crit damage build. I've been doing some testing, which I'll show you in the future, but I've changed my outlook on her, especially during night phase. Again, probably the best damage dealer for this raid as 4 stars, Dark Inagami Crow. The more debuffs they have, the more damage he's going to do. Don't forget Fire Desert Queen Sekhmet, she can steal all buffs. I would definitely have at least maybe 2 in the raid for when the buffs come up, just in case one misses. Alright, now for supports. Fire Vampire Vertiheal, we talked about him. Water Desert Queen Bastet, the shield, the attack up, she also brings attack down. Water Occult Girl Annabelle for the cleanse, for the heals, defense break. If you don't have any Sekhmets, chilling can remove beneficial effects as well. And this also gives your team a crit rate buff and an attack speed up. Water Pioneer Wusa, shield, immunity, heal over time. We talked about Wind Polar Queen Tiana. You can bring Wind Undine Delphoy mainly for heals and support, but to keep that damage taken up debuff on the enemy and stacking it. Wind Jacqueline or Windy, huge. The only monster in the game that gives a crit damage up buff to your allies. You have someone soul link this and just use his first skill, and then use the ultimate. You can have a summoner as a hybrid damage dealer. Use Argon, Fire Vampire, and Windy. Once you max out your ultimate, you can switch to Fire Vampire, use his ultimate, switch to Windy, spam his crit damage buff for you and your whole raid. Notable Light and Darks, Light Mermaid, Light Undine to remove all buffs as well, plus apply damage delta down, which is another debuff. Light Beetle Knight to increase beneficial effect levels. Dark Occult Girl if you got her. Attack buff heal plus 1 more debuff of Undead, which is uncommon. She's the only one. This helps all your big damage dealing hitters. 4-star supports. Megan, attack buff, attack speed buff. I'm sure there's going to be attack downs from summoners or other Bastets or whatever, but she also apply evasion down, which not too many people have as a debuff. Ones that you could use in guild raid anyway. Lulu is a good 4-star option for a healer / cleanser. Cleanses and immunity are important in guild raid. The boss is going to apply debuffs if they get hit. Main goal is don't get hit, but sometimes you're not going to be able to do that. Lighthouse Shushu is another example. Immunity is huge. Good healer. Dark Hard Crowa, one of the best 4-star supports in the game. Attack speed up, precision up, crit rate up buff. Also applies crit damage taken down. And one last thing about your summoners. All summoners should use different elements. Mainly for Orbia, like Wind for the defense break damage taken up. Fire for the damage over time burn. She also applies a res down, which is a debuff. You can even go Light Staff during the dark phase, or Dark Staff during the light phase. But even using Dark Staff for resistance down debuff and the move speed down debuff. And also Poison, stacks of 10, unrecoverable, even though she doesn't heal. Damage over time does damage over time, more damage, more dots. Cleaves can do attack down, attack speed down. Fire can do bleeds, and a heal block. Provoke counts as a debuff. Electric Shock, even blind. Crit rate down. Hina has burn, frostbite, electric shock. All I'm saying is make sure not all of your Orbias are wind. That's it for today's video. This is probably a lot of information, but it's very valuable if you are trying to top the ranks in guild raid. The team compositions you can make for this is endless. As long as you have the debuffs and the buffs stacked at 10 that I talked about, you dodge out of red stuff, you control the obelisk, you'll do just fine. If you like this video, sub, like, ding ding bell. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!